committee, bearing in mind the fact that we have a committee on foreign affairs, we have a committee on diaspora, and all that, and we can expand their scope of activities, and judiciary and human rights. But if we cannot expand their scope of activities, that's when I think we can now go into the creation of a separate committee on diaspora. Senate President Emeritus.
On the sitting of the Senate, the amendment we are seeking to do. So I've listened to you, and twice or thrice you have mentioned we should synchronize with the House. I have thought there will be another explanation, probably a more scientific explanation. Mr. President, I don't know the basis at the moment for which we want to shift our sitting from 10 to 11 and end at 3 p.m. To me, we have more energy, our heads are clearer in the morning, and 1 hour into the day probably would have lost some energy. And I feel, Mr. President, if we work between 10, if we sit in plenary between 10 and 2, our committees would do better than when the committees would have to go and sit between 4 probably and 6 or 7 or 8. So if we don't have any reason except that we have to synchronize with the House, I think we need to look at it again. But if we have other reasons that we must change, that will be fine. But if it is just synchronized, the House may have their reasons why they sit at 11 and close at 3. But here I don't see the reason. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Well, the sitting by 11 o'clock was started by you in the 9th Senate, particularly during the period of the COVID.
It was during the COVID, a huge number of days. And then we started sitting from 11 during the COVID period. But the rule stayed at 10.
The COVID,
yes,
made it. Our rule says 10, but we came and made the tradition of this 11. In fact, the only thing that we changed was to add additional day, because during that COVID period, you were sitting twice in a week. But I said no, that since there is no more COVID, we should sit 3 times in a week. And then, of course, we also maintain what we saw, the 11 o'clock. But now we are saying that we have not been able to justify the 11 o'clock sitting unless we reflect same in our rule. And the idea of 3 o'clock, in my view, is not correct, because it doesn't mean you must sit till 3. It simply means that we can, even if we don't have enough things to do, we can close at 1. We can close at 2, to enable our colleagues to go for committee sittings and other matters related to the proceedings of the Senate, such as clearances and all that, and meeting of government functionaries. So the only aspect of it was just to legalize it, so that people don't have the impression that you are sitting at 11 o'clock and your rule says 10 o'clock. But if we must leave it as it is, it's not a problem. But let's hear from the public. Yes, the leader of the Senate.
We want to make a very passionate appeal to our distinguished colleagues. Of course, I listened to the Senate President Emeritus, His Excellency distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawan, and we were very apt. For me, I believe the issue should go beyond trying to reconcile our timing with that of the House of Representatives. As a matter of fact, there have been some days that we sat and the House of Representatives did not sit. There have been moments that we had sat for a whole week with the House of Reps being on recess. So that cannot be the fundamental reason. The fundamental reason, distinguished colleagues, is that as distinguished senators, being on this floor is only one out of at least the three principal functions that we perform. Effective representation on the floor is one. Our committee assignments is another one. Over 70% of distinguished senators are chairmen of committees. And then, of course, thirdly, we have our oversight functions. Aside from other things that we have to engage in our various constituencies and on a national scale, and sometimes on an international scale. The logic, Mr. President, is that a lot of times distinguished senators have reasons to go to bed late, and there is no point having in our rule book that our sitting time is 10 a.m. and every day we sit at 11 o'clock. Of course, there are some distinguished senators who will be here 10 for 10, but there have been a lot of times that even you sat here, Mr. President, at 11.